Good morning everyone. Basan tayo na ating book guys. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. So nandito tayo sa part 3. Today is November 13, 2022. Continuation pa rin ito ng ating part 3 guys. Early customs and practices. Mixed marriages. Nandito tayo sa paragraph ng mixed marriages. Basa. If the married couple belonged to different classes, say, a freeman and a dependent, their children were equally divided among the parents insofar as social status was concerned. Thus, if the father was a freeman, the eldest, the third, the fifth, the seventh, and so on, whether the male or female belonged to the father. The second, the fourth, the sixth, and so on belonged to the mother, since in this case the father was a freeman and the mother a dependent. All children belonging to the father became freemen, and those belonging to the mother became dependents. But in case there was only one child, the latter became half free and half dependent. If there were an odd number of children, say 9, the ninth child became half free and half dependent. Inheritance and successions. Inheritance and succession. Among the ancient Filipinos, the legitimate children automatically inherited the property of their parents, even without a written will. The property was divided equally among the children, although either parent might show a little partiality in giving a favorite son or daughter an extra jewel or a few pieces of gold. But if the father gave any of his sons a dowry in order to be married to a chieftain's daughter, and the amount of the dowry exceeded the total amount given to the other sons, the excess was not counted, and the whole property to be divided. Things given in advance to any son or daughter, unless expressly considered by the parents as outside the property to be inherited, were interpreted to be part of the inheritance of the recipient. In cases where there were children by a free unmarried woman, aside from the legitimate children, the former were considered natural children if begotten after the father's first marriage. Ulitin ko guys ha. In cases where there were children by a free unmarried woman, aside from legitimate children, the former were considered natural children if begotten after the father's first marriage. The natural children did not share the father's property equally with the legitimate children. The latter were given 2 parts, while the remaining part was given to the natural children. In the absence of legitimate children, the natural children inherited all the property of the father. But sabi ko nga sa inyo guys, nabago na yan eh. Nabago na tong batas na to. Meron na tayong rebellia law na tinatawag. Yung gumawa niyan, si Ramon Rebella Sr. guys. Yung basahin niyo na lang yan. Okay. Ito kasi lumang batas pa to. If a man had legitimate children as well as children by a dependent, the latter did not inherit anything, but it was the duty of the legitimate children to free the dependent woman and to give something to her children. In the absence of heirs, however, the property of the couple went to their nearest relatives. So, kung sino yung pinakamalapit na kamag-anak. In matters of succession, the first son, ito kung wala kayong anak ha. Saka lang mapupunta sa kamag-anak. Yung pinakamalapit. In matters of succession, the first son of the barangay chieftain succeeded his father. If the first died without leaving an heir, the second son succeeded as chieftain. In the absence of any male heir, the eldest daughter became chieftain. Government. The barangay was the unit of government and consisted of from 30 to 100 families. The Tagalog word barangay was derived from the Malay balangay, a boat, which transported them to these shores. Its barangay was independent and was ruled by a chieftain. There was no king in those days, although some chieftains were more powerful than others and consequently respected by the other chiefs. The multiplicity of barangays implies that there was no national or central government. It was the primary duty of a chieftain to rule and govern his subjects and to promote their welfare and interest. What he received from them must be kept well and venerated. The subjects served their chieftain during wars and voyages and helped him in the tilling and sowing of the land and in the construction of his house. They paid tributes called buwis. Oh, this is tax, guys. They paid tributes called buwis to their chieftain in the form of crops. The chief descendants, pero wala siya ditong interpretation. Pero buwis kasi is Tagalog yan. Tagalog buwis means tax. To their chieftain in the form of crops, the chief's descendants and other relatives were highly regarded in the barangay and were considered noble, so were exempted from tributes and services. A chieftain had wide powers, for he exercised all the functions of government. He was the executive, the legislator, and the judge. He was naturally the supreme commander in time of war. The inter-barangay relations consisted in carrying on commerce between barangays and in agreement concerning friendship and alliance. A treaty of friendship and alliance was concluded by means of the blood compact or sangduguan. So, kunin natin to guys as dictionary word for today. A treaty of friendship and alliance was concluded by means of the blood compact or sangduguan, in which the contracting parties drew blood from their arms and mixed the blood thus drawn with the wine in a cup. Yeah. The contracting parties then drank from the same cup, thereby making them blood brothers. Wars between barangays occurred when a man from one barangay, pero pag sa Bible ka guys, diba yung pagka bawal ka man ng blood. Pero dito sa natin, meron tayong blood compact. Ininom nila nilagay nila sa wine. Ulit ha. A treaty of friendship and alliance was concluded by means of the blood compact or sangduguan, in which the contracting parties drew blood from their arms and mixed the blood thus drawn with the wine in a cup. Nagsusuka ako. Draw blood from their arms and mix the blood thus drawn with the wine in a cup. Na-imagine ko kasi yung blood guys, tapos iinumin mo. The contracting parties then drank from this. Kung sa bagay, konti lang tong tugo na to. Parang siguro patak lang. Pero dugo pa rin yan. The contracting parties then drank from the same cup, thereby making them blood brothers. Wars. Ulitin natin guys yung paragraph ng wars. Wars between barangays occurred when a man from one barangay went to another and was murdered without any obvious cause. Another cause of war was kidnapping the wives of men belonging to one barangay. Still another cause was the maltreatment of men of one barangay by men of another barangay. In these three causes of war, there seemed to have been very little or no attempt at all to reconcile conflicts, and the resolution of the conflict was brought about by force. Vengeance was the motive power that drove the men of the barangays to cut each other's throat. Laws. Laws were either customary or written. Customary laws were handed down orally from generation to generation and constituted the bulk of the laws of the barangay. The written laws were those that the chieftain and his elders promulgated from time to time as necessity arose. Only a few of the written laws, among them the so-called Code of Colonial and the Muslim laws, have come down to the present because many of them were destroyed by the early Spanish missionaries and many more destroyed by the elements. The laws customary and written dealt with various subjects such as inheritance, divorce, usury, partnership, crime and punishment, property rights, family relations, adoption, and loans. Criminal laws dealt with felonies or major crimes and minor crimes. A recidivist of habitual criminal was punished more severely than the one who committed a first offense. Major crimes were rape, incest, murder, witchcraft, insult, trespassing, sacrilegious acts, and larceny. A man guilty of any of these crimes was punished by death or by a heavy fine. Minor crimes, on the other hand, consisted of such misdemeanors as adultery, cheating, petty theft, perjury, disturbance of the peace of the night by singing, and destroying documents owned by a chief. So, nung araw pala to batas, guys, yung maingay sa gabi. These misdemeanors were punished by exposure to ants, by small fine, by flogging, by cutting the fingers of one hand, or by swimming for a certain number of hours. The punishment meted out of the guilty party may appear barbarous to contemporary men. It must be remembered, however, that the period was contemporaneous with ancient Babylon, Egypt, and Greece, whose laws were as barbarous as, if not more so than those of the ancient Filipinos. Apparently, the ancients, whether Filipino or European, did not believe in endangering society by letting loose a gang of thieves or recidivists whose manners could no longer be improved. So, hanggang dito na lang muna tayo, guys. Bye everyone. God bless.